What's up, you guys? Stoopzz back again with another video, and I am finally bringing you my Resto Shaman preview or review for Battle for Azeroth Beta. I was going to release this video a couple days ago. I know a lot of you have been waiting on that video, but there was a change to the Resto Shaman that we saw a couple days ago, and that's why I didn't want to release that video. It wasn't up to date, and we're kind of seeing a few classes get some changes one by one, and usually that signifies that that would probably be the last change that we might see, or significant change that we're going to see before the launch of the game. Just like the Mistweaver, I waited for the final build, and now with the Resto Shaman, I am waiting, or have waited for the final build. Now, before I was going to make this video and title it probably as like Resto Shaman being the most overpowered healer in Battle for Azeroth, or one of the more broken healers. And when I was reviewing the class on my stream, I couldn't believe at some of the just talent choices that you had. There's my phone as always, and there was just some significant things that they added to the Resto Shaman, and there wasn't a lot that was taken away when compared to Legion. A lot of healers are losing some things when it comes to Battle for Azeroth, or there's some changes that make them, in my opinion, just they don't feel as powerful in some ways, but they have some unique traits or abilities. Now, following this recent update, there was one significant change that I think makes the Resto Shaman perhaps still very strong, but more of so a well-rounded healer. It's still a very, very strong healer, a very, very powerful healer, but I wouldn't say that it makes the Shaman now the most powerful healer or the most overpowered healer. It's still a solid option. I would say it's one of the top healers, but I think this change is good. I think this balances out the game and makes the other healers much more respectable, like Mistweavers or Ardruids, when compared to the Resto Shaman or even the Discipline Priest. Now, just like all of my guides in the past, I'm in the same area, but now in a different expansion. I will be going over our general talents. I'll quickly cover our PvP talents, and then I'll just give you my general thoughts on the class overall. Now, hopping into our general talents, we have the current build on Battle for Azeroth. I'll probably show somewhere on the screen the build for Legion, and then it will also show you perhaps the previous build, if I can find it, where they made a change to Echo of the Elements in the previous beta build. Now, when I examine these classes, keep in mind, I don't judge something on being extremely powerful just based on the numbers. I never look at the numbers, and I've seen it in my comments in my videos, people saying Stoopzz, Mistweaver, Soothing Mist heals for a lot. I don't judge how good a class is based on damage numbers or numbers. I always look at the toolkit, because numbers are always the first thing to be tweaked. If something is healing for too much, they're just going to turn down the knob. It's very easy to do. So when you want to judge, if you want to judge a class on how well it's going to do, or if it's something that you want to invest your time into, you always want to look at the toolkit. And a Resto Shaman, or the current build of the Resto Shaman, has a pretty amazing toolkit. So just like in Legion, I'll probably recommend Torrent. Torrent is still a very powerful option. It increases the healing of your Riptide. You could also spec into Undulation if you feel like you will have a lot of time to cast. It just increases the third heal on your healing surge or your healing wave by 50%. So after 2 consecutive heals, the third consecutive heal will be a 50% increased heal. I still like Torrent though. We also have level 30. We have Echo of the Elements, which used to be down here, I believe, at level 90. Echo of the Elements is really the go-to in the Legion build, and this is where the change was made. So you used to be able to have Earth Shield, which, by the way, Earth Shield is no longer what it was in Legion. Now it doesn't reduce the amount of damage that target takes, it just increases the amount of healing on that target by 10%, and every time they get struck, it will heal them for a certain amount, and you have 9 charges on it versus, like, I think it's 3 on Legion or 4 on Legion, I always forget now. But it is a change to Earth Shield, but all Shaman specs, I believe, have Earth Shield. I still think it's the go-to for Resto. Echo of the Elements is pretty huge though. It gives you 2 charges on your Riptide, and it also gives you 2 charges on your Healing Stream Totem as well. So you can have 2 charges on Riptide, and that works really well with your tidal waves, reducing the cast time of your next healing wave, which I believe is one of your passive traits as a Resto Shaman. So typically you will just Riptide and then go into a healing wave to reduce the cast time of that healing wave. Now, not having 2 charges of Riptide or Healing Stream is kind of big. So I'm not quite sure what's better off here to take. Maybe if you're playing with 2 Shaman classes, which you do see a lot in Legion sometimes, one can have Earth Shield while you can play Echo of the Elements. Maybe both of you can have Earth Shield. But Now, a lot of shamans inside of Legion, some of them don't use Echo of the Elements. They use things like Bottomless Depths to preserve their mana. So this is debatable. However, this is the change. You were able to have Echo of the Elements and Earth Shield, which was pretty huge. But overall, I think this is a better way of balancing out the class and making this class more fair when compared to the other healers. Now, going into level 45, we have a new option here. We had Earth Grab, and then we used to have our Cap Totem, and I believe it was like Voodoo or Hex Totem here. I'll have to go back and look on the current build. However, now we have our Capacitor Totem, our Stun Totem that you see go off in Legion baseline. So that is a nice change. And we also have Tremor Totem, which is a new added ability, right? Tremor Totem has made a comeback here as well. So we have 2 new totems baseline. Tremor Totem is really unique in that it can prevent fears on that target for while it's up for 10 seconds. So for example, if you're about to get feared, you can drop your Tremor Totem and then it will break that fear. Also in Legion, there is a lot of Warlocks going on, and you will see a lot of people spamming out fears consecutively. This is really needed, I think, in the current state of the game. I'm not sure how relevant it'll be in Battle for Azeroth. However, it is a great tool for a Resto Shaman to prevent fears on yourself. You also have your Wind Shear, and you can spec into Grounding Totem as well in your PvP talents if you like. So it's going to be very hard to fear a Resto Shaman, and it's great for your allies, especially as they're closing in for a kill. So it can keep your team, if you're playing like a melee cleave, very, very offensive. And I really like this change. And again, we have our Stun Totem baseline as well. But now with those totems baseline, there is a new option here where the Capacitor Totem used to be, and you can spec into it. And it's just like Mistweavers. It's a talent option that allows you to reduce the cooldown on your Capacitor Totem for every enemy that gets struck by the Capacitor Totem. It will reduce the cooldown of it by 5 seconds with a maximum of 20 seconds. I don't think that's worth it, in my opinion. I think the go-to here, we also have Earth Grab if you're interested, but we have a new option here called Spirit Wolf, which I think is absolutely busted. So in Legion, there is an artifact trait, I might show it on the screen here somewhere, where while you're in your Ghost Wolf, you will build up this defensive ability called Spirit Wolf. I think it's called something else in Legion, but the way that it works in Legion is it goes up to about 24% damage reduction, but I don't believe it gives you movement speed. So while you're in Ghost Wolf, every second you will build up this damage reduction buff on yourself, and it goes up to about 24%, I believe, but then it begins to fall off. So while you're in Ghost Wolf, it'll sit at 24% maximum for a little bit, and then it will just suddenly disappear. However, they're bringing this back into Battle for Azeroth, but as a talent. However, now it's capped at 20% damage reduction, but it does not fall off. And on top of that, you also gain 20% movement speed. So while in your Ghost Wolf, you will be moving at 20% plus your standard 30%. So that is 50% movement speed. While in Ghost Wolf, you also can't fall below 100% movement speed. So that is a nice addition there on Ghost Wolf. And then you have your damage reduction. So you're moving at 50% movement speed, and you also take 20% less damage. Coupled with Earth Shield and maybe a Riptide, that is a really tanky mobile bear form. So it's almost like a better version of bear form in some sense, not completely, but it is a nice addition to the Resto Shaman. Now Resto Shamans can hang out in Ghost Wolf a lot more. They're a lot more mobile too, so I really like this change here, and that is one reason why I was saying Resto Shamans look insane. However, one thing that we did lose in terms of mobility is Gust of Wind. You no longer have Gust of Wind, which is why I think we're seeing so many changes to Ghost Wolf in terms of Spirit Wolf, and then again, I'll get into it later, Spectral Recovery. Gust of Wind was really nice from getting to pillar. It was really also nice for just getting away from your enemies, and then also Gust of Winding to your allies to land a Spirit Link. So now you're going to have to look to get a Spirit Link on both of your allies. If one of them is low and the other one is about half HP to save their life, you can't Gust of Wind and drop Spirit Link, but overall, I think a lot of healers are losing some mechanics that they did like, and I don't think this one is just too game-changing. Now going into level 60, we still have our Ancestral Protection Totem that no one really specs into, except I've seen it a few times and it's made me laugh. It just brings an ally back to life after they die while the totem is up, but most people kill it, and Earthen Wall Totem is just much more effective here. So you do get to keep your Earthen Wall Totem, your Earthen Shield Totem, so that is a nice change, and Ancestral Vigor is just more of so. I mean, you see it sometimes, but go-to almost always is going to be Earthen Wall Totem. Now going into level 75, we have Windrush Totem and Graceful Spirit. These options are not very viable, I would say, in PvP, and they're nowhere near as good as our new option, which is once again why I thought Resto Shaman was going to be just absolutely insane, and it still is insane, just not as broken as it was earlier in the previous beta builds when you could have Echo of the Elements, Earth Shield, Earthen Wall Totem, that Spirit Wolf talent, and then as well as this new talent called Nature's Guardian. This was just insane when combined with the previous toolkit, and it still is very good. Nature's Guardian, when your health is brought below 35% health, you instantly heal for 20% of your maximum health, and it cannot occur more than once every 45 seconds. That is a really low timer. Once every 45 seconds, if you fall below 35% health, you're going to instantly heal for 20% of your maximum health. So it's almost like a cheat death in a sense. It's almost like the healing elixirs on Mistweavers as well. Now you have this ghostful form that you can sit in a lot and have crazy movement speed with Earth Shield, with Riptides going on, with your healing stream totems. And then if you get low, you could be an Earthen, you still got to keep your wall, so you still have your Ancestral Shift, which makes you like almost unkillable when combined with your Earthen Totem. And then now, if you ever fall below 35% health, you will heal 20% of your maximum health, and it can happen every 45 seconds. I think that timer is a little too low, to be honest, but because it's at 45 seconds, it's definitely going to be your go-to almost always. So I'm very confident in that Torrent, Earth Shield, or Echo, but probably Earth Shield, Spirit Wolf, Earthen Wall Totem, and Nature's Guardian is going to make Resto Shamans, no longer the kill target, at least when compared to in Legion. Legion, you see a Resto Shaman, they're pretty easy to take down if they are not very good at managing things. I mean, if you're solid at Resto Shaman and you space out your wall, your Earthen Totem, you are using your Healing Stream Totem as well to build up the defensive buff, which you no longer have, and that's why I think if you're unfamiliar, there was an artifact trait that every time you dropped your Healing Stream Totem, it would reduce the amount of damage you take by, I believe, 12% for a certain amount of time. I think it was 10 seconds or so, or maybe 9. That is what made Echo of the Elements so strong. But now that you don't have that anymore, I think Earth Shield's probably just going to be okay, and you also have Rippling Waters, which I'll get to in a little bit. But this build right here from level 75 upwards is going to make Resto Shaman very, very tanky, and I think a lot of players are going to be excited about that. Now for level 90, we have Downpour, which is like this PvE talent, and then we have Flash Flood and Cloudburst Totem. Now, Echo of the Elements, I believe, used to be down here, even on the live build, so you always spec'd into Echo, but now that it's not here, you might mess around with Cloudburst Totem as it replaces your Healing Stream Totem, and it's just a better version, I would say, of your Healing Stream Totem. So if you're unfamiliar, you drop this totem that takes place of your Healing Stream Totem, and if you do spec into Echo, you can essentially have 2 of them, right? So Cloudburst Totem summons a totem at your feet for 15 seconds, and it collects all the power of your healing spells. When the totem expires, the stored power is released, healing all injured allies within 40 yards for 20% of all the healing you did, divided among all targets evenly. So this is pretty nice. I mean, again, you didn't see too much play with Cloudburst Totem because Echo of the Elements was down here, but now that it's not, maybe it is an option that you might explore down the road. And then we also have Flash Flood, which is another way to kind of make up for not having Echo of the Elements. So when you consume Tidal Waves, which once again is that buff that procs off of Riptide, you can see here that my next Healing Wave cast time is reduced by 30%, or in regards to your Healing Surge, it increases the critical strike chance of your next Healing Surge by 40%. Once you consume this, so if I were to cast a Healing Wave for reduced cast time, you will get this buff called Flash Flood, which the next cast time of your next heal is reduced by 20%. So Flash Flood in essence just increases your healing consistency, it reduces the cast time of all your heals, and it makes Shaman feel a little bit more fluid. However, I'm not quite sure if Cloudburst Totem will be the go-to over Flash Flood. They're both pretty solid options, but again, nothing compared to Echo of the Elements once again. And then now for level 100, we're still going to spec into Ascendant, at least for Arena. Ascendant is absolutely insane. It's the same thing as we had in the past. You just go into this crazy form, and it allows you to effectively pick up your team much easier with your Riptides and then all of your heals. It just splash heals your team evenly and is a great way to top you or your entire team when you're in a dire situation. So overall, Shaman in terms of the regular talents looks absolutely insane. We have great things there, and there are some new options that I will go over in our PvP talents. So for PvP talents, you have Sky Fury Totem, Counter Strike, Swelling Waves. You have your Voodoo Mastery to reduce the time, the cooldown on your Hex. You have Grounding Totem. We have our favorite trait here, Electrocute, which is seeing a lot of play, especially in Legion. We have Grounding, I said that again. We have Spirit Link, Purifying Waters, Tidebringer, and Comment, whatever. So some of the more viable options here that I would say are going to be probably Electrocute, and this might be the one that you might swap out depending on the team that you're fighting. If you're fighting versus a team that has a lot of HOTS or perhaps a Discipline Priest, Electrocute is going to do wonders into Discipline Priest that can spam out their powered shields. If you're unfamiliar, Electrocute does an insane amount of damage on the beta, but once again, that can be tweaked. But every time you purge a beneficial effect, the enemy suffers a certain amount of damage over 3 seconds. And on the beta right now, it's doing a lot of damage. So Electrocute is probably going to be your go-to mostly. But if you ever want to swap something out, like for Grounding Totem, you might swap out Electrocute. We also have Spectral Recovery, which we've seen on other Shaman builds in Legion, but now for Resto, it looks exceptionally good. So while in Ghost Wolf, you heal 3% of your health every 2 seconds, and it increases the movement speed of your Ghost Wolf by an additional 10%. So this, combined with Spirit Wolf, is absolutely insane. So now that I have Spectral Recovery, while I'm in Ghost Wolf, I will be moving at 60% movement speed. I will be taking 20% less damage, and I will also be healing 3% of my max health every 2 seconds. So that, coupled with an Earth Shield, a Riptide, and Ghost Wolf, that is a very, very tanky class. I mean, that is an exceptional talent, and I think it works very, very well with Spirit Wolf. So I think a lot of Shamans will be taking this talent choice. Obviously, you can spec into other things. You can also spec into Spirit Link if you want to play that Mongo build. A lot of people do versus like Jungle. They might play Spirit Link, and you just run after the healer the whole time, and you just spam your purges, and you play Electrocute as well. And it's a great way to keep your team offensive if you're playing something like Walking Dead. Finally, we have Rippling Waters, which is a great way to kind of correct the issue of not having Echo of the Elements. So Riptide has an additional charge. So this allows you to make up for not having Echo of the Elements. So having Riptide is very nice. Having 2 charges of your Riptide is very nice because it makes it easy to keep up your tidal waves. You can stack it again and you get your tidal waves again, which allows you to cast out more healing waves much more effectively. And Riptide with Torrent is a great way to heal people. Well, now Riptide has an additional charge with Rippling Waters, and Riptide also heals for 360. The amount doesn't really matter here. When the spell ends its duration, or it's refreshed on the target, or it's dispelled. So that is a nice little purge protection as well. So Rippling Waters might be your go-to. But once again, the reason why I thought Resto Shaman was going to be the most broken healer is you could have Rippling Waters, you could have like Electrocute, Spectral Recovery, and you could have Echo of the Elements, giving you 3 stacks on your Riptide as well as Earth Shield. So overall, I think Resto Shamans are still in a very, very strong place. They are not like absolutely broken and busted like they were earlier. I still think they are the most well-rounded healer, as they can play really well into melee cleaves because of their aggressive purge ability. They can do really well in spellcaster comps because of their ability to have shears. They can spec into grounding, and they can spec into Sky Fury if necessary. So Resto Shaman is still, in my opinion, the go-to healer for a lot of people. And then now they're much more they're just a lot more tanky. They're probably easier to pick up because you won't die so easily. You have this new fake death talent over here. You have your new Spirit Wolf, Spectral Recovery, Earth Shield. You still got to keep Earthen Totem. You even got Tremor Totem. You have baseline Stun Totem, and they even gave you Earth Elemental, which is, an interesting change as well. Everything else stayed the same. You have Spirit Link, you have Ascendance, your Healing Tide. Almost everything Resto Shamans were able to keep from Battle for Azeroth, and they even earned a little bit more. But that's gonna do it for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. If you have any more questions on the Resto Shaman, you can leave them in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you guys right away. Try not to miss me on my Twitch and YouTube live stream where I answer all of your guys' questions in depth. Do not forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.